My name is Irvin Zabaleta Jimenez. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I work as an assistant director at North Carolina Campus Compact. And we are very, very happy to welcome you to the second Virtual Resource Exchange, VRE. So this series is meant to be a very interactive webinar. We want to create a space where people can ask questions and share resources and information. So in each virtual exchange, we're going to have folks or experts from the field sharing with us about a particular content knowledge or example. And then we ask the folks, ask particular questions that you're thinking about, something that get your attention, and then also like share with us anything that is going on your campus, something that can contribute to the conversation. So this series is focused on what are the resources available that measure student political engagement, and then we'll have a campus as an example of how they use this type of resources to implement the program throughout campus. Before we get started, our next virtual resource exchange will happen on March 18th, so in 2 weeks. Make sure that you join us for that at 3 o'clock as well. All right, so I'm going to introduce the speakers first. I'm going to introduce all of them, and then we'll turn it over to them. All right, so first we're going to have Dr. Adam Gismondi, who's the Director of Impact at the Institute for Democracy in Higher Education at Tufts University. He conducts research, also leads the communications, and helps build theory to change practice. His scholarship focuses on the current state and future of higher education, including college student activism, technology, and campus climate. So he will be talking to us more about NSolve. Then after that, we will have representatives from the Raritan Valley Community College. Raritan Valley increased its voting rate from 27 in 2014 to 41 in 2018. Its president, Dr. Michael McDonald, serves in the board of directors of New Jersey Campus Compact. In 2018, they received a grant, the Engaged Election Grant from Campus Compact to implement some of their strategies. Leading that platform is Lori Moog, who is the Director of Service Learning and Community Outreach. She coordinated the college premier service learning program. She has done that since '96. A program that has been getting a lot of national awards, including recognition of the President's Community Service Honor Roll from 2006 to 2012, and also securing the 2008 Carnegie Community Engagement Classification. It's important to note that in 2011, Lori helped establish the New Jersey Campus Compact. We also have joining Lori Russell Barefoot, who is the Director of Student Life since 2011. He really enjoys working with student development in higher education and has been in student affairs since 1995. He has a master's degree in higher education administration. Also, Alicia Walker, who is the Assistant Director of Student Life at Raritan Valley Community College. She currently serves in the Our Votes Matter campaign, which is a political and civic engagement initiative that was launched in 2018 in partnership with the Democracy Commitment 2018 Engaged and Midterm Election Campaign, current partnership with New Jersey Campus Compact and All In Challenge. We also have Dominique Zona, who is a Student Government Association Senator and is majoring in education and wants to become a history teacher. Dominique has been instrumental in helping Raritan Valley Community College get a higher voting turnout. So as I mentioned earlier, this is supposed to be very interactive, and we want to hear from everyone. So if you are able, please turn in your camera so we can see you as well. But let's get started with Dr. Gismondi, who's going to share a little bit more about the National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement. So he's going to share his screen. Give me one moment.
I can do it from here. Thanks so much. I will start, but you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not wearing the same shirt that I wore in the picture that was displaying me earlier, even though it looks the same. Hi, everybody. My name is Adam. I'm Director of Impact at IDHE. Our office, if you're not familiar with it, studies all things political on college campuses. We look at almost anything you can imagine that at that intersection between democracy and colleges and universities. The thing that many of you probably know us from is NSolve, and that's mainly what I'll be talking about today. So rather than go through kind of a standard set of slides, which I think some of you maybe have seen before, we thought we'd go through the website and kind of show you a little bit about NSolve, and if you're interested in joining, some of the kind of resources that may be available to you. So if you just go to idhe.tufts.edu, you'll see you'll see our homepage here. Okay. So you'll find pretty much anything you might need right here. So if you go to the top bar here, NSolve is the National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, this is a study that includes about 1,100 colleges and universities in the United States. It was born out of this idea that civic engagement and political learning are concepts that colleges and universities talk often about, but it's not an easy idea or concept to actually assess or measure on your campus. So schools can opt in for free if you participate in the National Student Clearinghouse, which most campuses do already. That's really all we need. And someone at the senior level, a president, a vice president, dean of students, or director of institutional research can sign up your institution. By signing up after each national US election, so the even years, so 2020, 2018, we produce voting reports based off of those elections. So for each campus that signs up in the year following those elections, so think summer 2021, maybe September 2021, you'll receive a report that'll give you a breakdown of your campus's registration rates and turnout, and we'll look at a report in just a moment. For us, NSolve is also hugely useful as a database for research on college student voting. So like I said, if you go to our website, hopefully you can see this. I don't know if you have depends how your screen is set up, the video chat there. So in the screen that I'm sharing here, if you go to idhe.tufts.edu/NSolve, you'll see a little bit about the study. We have a video on our website that explains how it all works. It's pretty short, so if you are curious, you can check that out. We also have an FAQ on the website, and you can kind of see groups that we work with and that sort of thing. On this main landing page, you'll also see, you can look through some of the past year's data. What I wanted to highlight here are these NSolve resources. So on this, once you receive your report, you can look at how to use the reports, a guide for campus conversations about NSolve reports, how we create NSolve and how we maintain this database that's enormous. Like I said, there's around 1,100 campuses, and what that translates to in terms of real numbers of students, it's about, it's a little over 10 million college students in the United States. And to give you a sense of how big that is and how proportional it is, there's about 18 million college students enrolled at this moment in colleges and universities. So our study accounts for in the 50 to 60% range of all students. So it's a pretty impressive thing in terms of as a research tool. So if you want to look through and see like what's happening, it's a really good measure of that. So like I said, we'll take a look at some sample reports. On our website, you can see schools that have posted their campus reports as well, but we'll take a look. This is a sample of 4-year institutions. So when you sign up, this is the kind of thing that you get. This was a report in the format from the 2016 election season. This study started, and the data go back to 2012. So we have 2012, 2014, 2016, and now 2018. So because we now have comparable election years, so presidential years we can compare and midterm elections that we can compare, when you receive a report, it's what we call a comparison report. So at this fictitious university, you can see this is comparing 2012 and 2016. So when you scroll through it, you'll see a little bit about the report and the office and our team photo. So right here, a couple pages in, this is the thing that a lot of schools will ask first about. We provide your campus's voting rate. So in this sample report, you see 2016, this campus had a 44.4% voting rate, and it shows you how much it went up or down from the prior election. And then we give you some comparison points. So here's the national voting rate. So I think when we have the other panelists talk, they'll go through their report a little bit more in detail, but I'm just going to show you real quickly how to navigate this. So on this front page, you can see the registration rate for your campus, which just means overall, out of all eligible students, how many of them registered to vote. That middle column here is the turnout rate of students that were registered. So, out of your 100% of students that were registered among those that were eligible, how many of them turned out, and then that gives you your overall voting rate. So out of all students, how many actually voted. At the bottom of all these pages, you'll also find some raw numbers. So this gives you how many students were enrolled, some of our adjustments that we make, and you can see kind of like I said, the raw numbers. So, up top you see percentages, and down here you can see how many students that actually equates to. Throughout the report, you'll find a series of comparisons for your data. So we like to give you some sense of like, okay, well, what do these numbers mean in context? So Carnegie classification is type of institution. So for this school, you can see, all right, well, here's your institution's data. And then here are the averages for master's granting institutions, public master's institutions, and private masters. Another area of comparison that we offer, you can look at voting method. In the sample campus, there's not a lot of data for early voting or voting by mail. What you'll notice when you look at the 2018 reports, and most likely what will happen in 2020, the early voting is becoming more of a thing on a lot of campuses. So a lot of students are choosing to vote earlier. In these reports, we also show you what it looks like by age group among your students. We show it by education level, meaning undergraduate students versus graduate students. Undergraduate class year, so first year, sophomore, full-time versus part-time. Gender, which I will note, this category, among many others, are categories that are given to us from either campus statistics or national categories, so that's why we have binary gender data. Race and ethnicity categories, again, these categories are given to us by the government. And the last thing I just wanted to highlight is in these reports, you can see by field of study. So if you want to think about your campus in terms of, it's not just about how many people voted. You shouldn't just care about your overall numbers, but it's really important to think about all these various categories that I just went through. Who is turning out? I mean, who are the students that are being represented in the system, and who are those who are not being reached? So in the sample campus report, you can see, for instance, education students, 55.4%, so outperforming the campus average by quite a bit. In this sample example, you can see communication and journalism. It's not as many students, but it's a little bit lower rate. Interestingly, across campuses, there are certain majors that seem to hold as being the ones that students turn out often in. At most schools, library science is very high, education is often high, and as you might expect, social sciences actually is often high. That's where you'd find things like political science. At the back of the report, you'll see how to contact us. But that's just kind of a quick overview of a sample campus report for NSolve. Now, I just wanted to highlight a few other quick things. If you're interested in joining NSolve, but you're not sure if your school is just yet, if you go to our website and go to NSolve and then the tab Participating Campuses, you can look through a full list here. I would suggest actually on the sidebar here, search by institution. And what we have here is we created this interactive tool. So I'll type in Tufts. You just can type part of your campus, your school's name. And when you click it, you can see your school's participation. So you can see Tufts University, which is where our office is based, is in Massachusetts. It's in NSolve and it has reauthorized, which was a process we went through in 2018. So once you find out if your school is in here, that's a good way to know, like, okay, yes, our school does have a report or doesn't. If you want to join, like I said, there's a particular process where you need someone at the signatory level to sign off. But if you go to NSolve and then go to Join NSolve, you can learn more about how to join here. But the quick answer is there's an authorization form on our website. You'll see here, it's 2 pages, very short. You can get it done in an afternoon, maybe even faster. So once you're signed up, the last thing I will show you are a few resources on our website. So the top part here, we have some really great, if you're kind of a person and you want to just kind of look a little bit more, you can go to the Data Portal and Visualizations tab, and we have a ton of great resources up here. So sometimes we'll do one-off things, like this is an analysis of the Wisconsin gubernatorial election 2018. And if you're interested more in kind of the national numbers, we put up for the big election years visualizations like this. So this is the 2018 NSolve data portal, where you can look at the national numbers if you want to see kind of beyond just your own campus. You can see in 2018, it was a pretty remarkable year. The national rate doubled. And if you want to read more about the individual election years, under the NSolve tab, you can find more. So in 2018, you can read our full report here under the 2018 tab. Here is in the middle, Democracy Counts 2018, which is our report on the 2018 numbers. And the last resource that I think is really helpful is under resources on our website, Election Imperatives. This is our research-based recommendation guide for campuses that want to build political learning and campus culture around political learning. And when you flip through this guide, you'll see we offer recommendations for how to kind of build these efforts. And for schools in particular that are tackling some of these issues for the first time, this is a really good starting point. And we worked with partners to pull together resources for how to achieve some of these goals that we share. So anyway, I encourage you all to go to our website and definitely sign up for our mailing list, which you can do on our contact page. And follow us on Twitter at Tufts IDHE if you're interested in learning more. But like I said, on our website, you can sign up. And I will stop there. And if anyone has any questions at the end, I will be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. So far, we don't have any questions yet. So folks, please ask questions, comment. If perhaps you don't have any questions, but your institution uses NSolve, or there are conversations about the possibility of using NSolve, we want to know. I want to know, how have you used NSolve? how have you found it helpful, or what are the paths to achieving that? I do have a question for Adam in the meantime before we go to talk a little bit more in depth on Raritan Valley Community College. So I know that in the election imperatives that you mentioned, Adam, which I think is a great guide. Number 8 is improving and increasing the political engagement in classrooms. Mm-hmm. And I know that, and you mentioned how the social sciences education majors, they tend to vote at greater rates than people who are majoring in science. Have you heard about best practices on how can faculty engage, faculty in the non-science departments engage students in voting or in political engagement?
In the non-social sciences, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'd say that there's a one-size-fits-all approach to it, but I would definitely encourage everyone to check out the Democracy Counts 2018 report. We feature some campuses that we thought are doing some interesting work in that space. I'll just say real quick that you kind of need a coalition between the top-level administrators buying into this, who have some positional authority and often resources, and the students that are on campus. And you want kind of peer-to-peer leadership. And that's one way to start the conversation and to start building a coalition that can think creatively around these issues. But some specific examples of things that we've seen at the University of Texas at Austin, the student organization there went to faculty classrooms in 2018. They went to, I think, a few hundred, and they used their NSolve data in those disciplinary areas to say, did you know, they'd go into math class and say, do you know that math is the low, I'm just using this as an example, math is the lowest voting rate on campus. And like, why is that? And don't you think you can do a little bit better? And kind of use the numbers to frame the conversation. We've also, and faculty were very receptive to that. Part of it is building, identifying the faculty leaders who care about these issues and are willing to engage, and then help bring on board some of their colleagues. We produce discussion guides that are specifically aimed at kind of these cross-disciplinary areas and targeting some of the lower voting areas, including STEM areas and business. Here at Tufts University, we're piloting some work with the engineering department and the faculty here. So I would definitely say reach out to me if you want to talk more about this, but I don't want to take up anyone else's time, and we can circle back if there's time at the end. But there are some really good examples out there and some good work being done.
I think that the University of Texas at Austin continues to keep coming back as an example of a university that has done really well in voter engagement. So thank you, Adam. Mm-hmm. All right, so now we're gonna kind of shift gears into how has a community college used NSolve data to really start implementing a plan and kind of measure their political engagement on campus. So we have Lori. Lori, I do have the slides that you told me to pull up. So just let me know when to change it, and I will change the slides. But Lori, I think you're muted.
So thank you for having Raritan Valley on this call, and the nice introductions. So I just want to start by saying that, I just want to give you a little background on how we got involved in expanding our work in this area. So the Student Life Office, headed by Russell Barefoot, Alicia Walker, and Dominic Zona from Student Government, had always been involved with democratic engagement. They had a couple of, not more than a couple efforts around voter registration. And thanks to a small mini grant that Virtus gave to a number of colleges, including ours. And it really was small. It was 1,800, but we never realized how far and how impactful that small grant money was for us. So, and I'm mentioning this because I think that there are other opportunities to get grant funding for this work. And I, think it's it's seed money and a great way to either develop a new initiative around, democratic political engagement, voter registration, or to expand the existing work that you're doing on your campus, which included what we were doing. So I'm going to let Dominic did an amazing job heading up the Our Votes Matter campaign. He has put an outstanding action plan together for All In Challenge that we submitted, and we're continuing to work on, and we'll resubmit. So I'm going to, if it's okay with Dominic, let Dominic take the lead on it. But I do want to say, the NSolve report is so interesting. To me, it was fascinating to see, as Adam mentioned to you, all the different ways in which your students are involved, right down from race, gender, to academic majors. So it's really a great overview. And I would strongly encourage other colleges to participate in the NSolve report. So on that note, Dominic, I'm going to let you take over and talk about the various slides that we've picked out.
Alrighty. So can you guys hear me all right? We all good? Cool. So just for some context as to how I got involved with the Our Votes Matter campaign on our campus and how I've come to use the NSLVE reports. I'm a part of the student government on campus. I was democratically elected by my fellow peers, and I was in charge of taking up this project. And I'm not gonna lie, at first I was a little overwhelmed because I've never done something like this before. And when Lori told me about the All In Challenge and the idea of developing an action plan, I was enthusiastic, but at the same time, I was nervous because, again, this is the first time myself or any respective student that had just come into my position had ever done this. However, in looking at the NSLVE reports, it has given me enough data, like a myriad of data, like Lori was just saying, that basically allows us to apply to any sort of action plan or potential application for a grant. So in a second here, I'm actually going to try and share my screen if that's all right. Let's see. Can I? Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. One moment. Let's do, there we go. So right here, if you guys can see, this is our Raritan Valley Community College All-In Challenge Action Plan. And what this was is it was an action plan that was demonstrating a strategy as to which how Raritan Valley was going to attempt to increase voter registration on campus and increase the amount of people registered to vote, actively voting, and also knowledgeable about their candidates, regardless of our own leanings as individuals. So one of the ways that the NSLVE data really gave us the cornerstone and the backbone to this project was simply in the information department here. We already have some couple of slides that we're going to show in a couple of minutes here, but generally speaking, the data that we're using here on this action plan was taken from the NSLVE just because of how easily and accessible it was presented to us and broken down in a variety of different categories, such as, by gender, by age, by course of study, etc. And it was something that we took that data and we looked at it very strongly and said, we, as Raritan Valley, we made a lot of improvements. Let me see if I can pull up the action plan itself. Yeah. So overall, this was our voting rate in 2018. We're looking at 41.4% here, which was a gigantic leap from its original 14.4% that we had 4 years prior. And we looked at a lot of the different data here, especially the Carnegie classification, but also to the voting method and the age group. And we were especially interested in the age group here because something that we're trying to combat on campus here as a 2-year community college is to combat people who are just actually getting out of high school, just starting to get into some sort of higher education, but they're not entirely sure what they want to do yet. And we're trying to influence them and show them the importance that their vote can make on the policies that their politicians are going for. So we tried to reflect data that we saw within the action plan, within our NSLVE reports, within our action plans, and therefore also help determine the type of things that we would do on campus and the ways that we would try to increase voter turnout. So I can stop sharing there. But some things that we tried to do was to basically take that data and understand, how can we make improvements within our organization, and make improvements on our strategies as to which we're going to try and connect with students. And one of the best things that we found was purely by working with other organizations, local and national, like yourselves, and trying to get them to come on campus and basically try to help us express to students how important it is to vote. One clear example that we actually outlined within our action plan was the League of Women Voters. This was a nonprofit organization that was basically started in order to try and help individuals get registered to vote, and also, predominantly women, but really anybody. And we had them on campus several times for events that we were hosting, like a spring picnic, or events that were hosted open to the students, and we would have them as a small table and give them the opportunity to register students that were interested in to vote. And we made a conceded effort to try and basically get ourselves, we took that data, saw what demographics we were maybe missing out on, our demographics we can improve on, and try to bring our ability to register people to vote to those events and make it easier for people to get registered and get knowledgeable about the candidates that they want to see elected into office, or candidates that would help them succeed later on down the line. If we go to the next slide here, let's see that, just our first data. Yeah, so again, this is our voter and registration rates. And again, it was a mile-long difference between what we had in 2014 and what we have now, or at least in 2018. And we're seeing, improvements across the board here purely because of the fact that we started to make that effort to try and engage students openly. It's much more impactful to look at a student and say, hey, are you registered to vote? Versus sending out an email, that might just be ignored or put in the spam folder and be left alone, or, whatever else. So again, we're seeing, not only are we seeing voting registration increase, but we're also seeing just enrollment increasing, and we're still reflecting that positive change within our environment. And we're still making actions because of the data that we're seeing in this report. So if we could go to the next slide. And again, this is the Carnegie classification, and we can just move on to the next slide, actually. So one interesting thing that we saw here with the 2018 campaign versus the 2014 one was we saw a decrease in in-person election days, but an increase in absentee ballots. And this is because what the Our Votes Matter campaign was trying to do was show people that they didn't actually have to walk into a polling station to put their vote out. Basically, we were expressing to people that basically, we want you to vote, we want you to have your voice heard, it matters. But if you're unable to go to a polling station, whether it be because you're working or, you've got other commitments that, happen to fall on the same day as a voting day or an election day, that you're still capable of sending in your vote via the absentee ballot. And it's unfortunate that we don't have early vote or mail data there, but it still shows that the absentee ballot vote was still increasing because we were still trying to get people exposed to different avenues of voting. So we can move on to the next one there. And again, this is something that we're really happy about, is the age group demographic, specifically 18 to 21. we saw a massive, massive boost between the 10.5% in comparison to the 42.6%. And that's by and large because of the fact that we were trying to orient ourselves and make an image for ourselves as trying to appeal to the younger demographic in order to increase that youth voter turnout within local and national elections. And we were really happy that we were able to get that many people registered to vote and enrolled, because it's just, you know, it's a good thing to have. So we can move on to the next slide. And again, this is based on our enrollment status. So at Raritan Valley right now, from what I understand, we have much more part-time students than we do full-time, because again, we're a community college, we're a 2-year institution, and you know, students who are often trying to come here, this is just a stepping stone for their 4-year institution, or they have to get their certifications for whatever career path that they're getting into. We were really happy to see the part-time enrollment status went up, but along with that, the voting registration rate for that group as well, because a full-time student is always on campus, so they're always exposed to what's going on around them, whether it be events, posters, you know, whatever other means that we make to, you know, try and get people registered to vote. Part-time students aren't guaranteed to be there, but the fact that we still were able to appeal to them and get them registered to vote and get them voting shows that our campaign was making serious strides in trying to increase the voting rate of our campus here. So we can move on. Yep, by gender. And again, this is just another reflection of our success in the campaign in respects to now this sort of demographic here, whereas before we just had lower voting rates across the board, we were able to appeal to different demographics in order to try and get them voted and registered to go, only because we were trying to get them at different events that maybe pertained to both demographics in their own ways. So we can move on to the next one. And once again, we made just big progress here. And this is just basically, we're reflecting right now on the fact that our campaign, by using the data that we got from the NSLVE reports here, we were able to just target and implement sort of changes and ideas that were highly reflected by the students. So we can go on to the next one. Yeah, so I'm going to pass this off back to Lori now in case she's got anything else left to say. But I've been very excited and happy to show all of you how our campaign has managed to get so many students registered to vote in such a quick time.
Thank you, Dominic. That was an excellent presentation, really great. I really can't imagine adding anything, but I do want to mention, you know, we were talking earlier how campuses can get involved in this work. And as Dominic's demonstrated, I think a student government person, whatever their role is, Dominic's senator, would really be a good place to start. I mean, I certainly would encourage you to look at your student government and see who might be interested. I know that Dominic is now, just so this whole piece is sustainable, is going to bring on the new cohort of student government people, because Dominic's leaving the institution and going to a 4-year school in May. But we want to ensure, and he does especially, that none of this is lost, because when Dominic came on, it was all a whole new area. You know, it was baptism by fire, basically, as he's mentioned. And he didn't want to see that happen again. And I do think sustainability is really an important piece of our work, because as it gets sustained, it will continue to grow and deepen, as opposed to constantly spinning our wheels every few years when someone leaves, whether it's a student or a faculty member or an administrator. Alicia, I don't know if Alicia's on the call and she wants to add to this. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, the only thing that I would add is about getting faculty involved in this work as well. We definitely partnered with our faculty members, and they were able to set up panel discussions describing, you know, not necessarily the candidates itself, but just the process and how students should go about it. How should they look up the candidate issues that they should be voting on. And I think that was a big push too. In the past, we had students who actually registered to vote, but then they didn't understand the candidate's platform, so they did not necessarily vote in the past. So I think we saw a big push or increase in that area because of our faculty joining in with us and really getting the information out there to the students, allowing like an open forum or panel discussion where students were there to ask questions and really get some of the misconceptions, or the myths dispelled. So I think with that being said, as far as sustainability, that's another area that we can focus in and hone in on, and also utilizing your library staff. Our library colleagues were so instrumental in helping us get this information out across the board to not just the faculty, but also the students. So I think those collaborations and partnerships across the campus with our colleagues is equally as important as partnering with our student government and our other student leaders as well. So opening up the opportunity for not just student leaders, but just students who wanted to be involved. And I was really happy to see last time in 2018 that we had so many students who were not necessarily a part of any club or organization. And when they joined our Votes Matter campaign, they actually indicated some interest in joining student government or leadership in one of the other clubs or organizations on campus, or just volunteering to do work across the campus. So again, pushing that community engagement and college engagement piece of students just being involved in not just this work, but we saw an increase in students participating in other work on campus as well. So just always open it up and give students an opportunity to be a part of and make sure that they understand what they're doing. And I think we'll see like how Dominic, he took this on and he was committed to it and he did an excellent job. So again, Dom, great job with the presentation and the work that you have done on this. But I think when we give our students that platform and an opportunity to perform, this is what we're going to see.
Yeah, and I actually just want to jump in and just talk about that real quick too. I mean, my involvement with the Our Votes Matter campaign on our campus here, one of the key things that really drew my interest and drew a sort of passion from me was the way that I was treated from administration and faculty and my colleagues here. I think that there's a certain, not stigma, but certain perception of maybe trusting a student with, a task as large as trying to increase voter registration, or a task, so politically oriented as this. But I feel like that was one of our main strengths here, is that we empowered students like myself and our student government in order to make the active change. I can speak on behalf of our process here on campus. Really, it was Lori, Russell, Alacia saying, hey, Dom, we've got this grant open here. All they need is an action plan, a sort of plan to try and get people registered to vote. How about you work on that? If you need our help, let us know. And it was free. At that point, I had free ability to go about this problem any way I saw fit, or not problem, a project. And I did just that. And, we had, weekly meetings and we talked about it. And if I had questions, I went to the necessary faculty or administrators that, I had to ask the question for. But by and large, the fact that I had the freedom to go and develop this action plan and the freedom to look at this data, unadulterated, and then come back with this plan and come back with these results, I feel was one of our greatest strengths, rather than it be more restrictive or something that was more oriented towards, letting the faculty deal with the work while the students just kind of, push pens around or something like that.
And I just want to jump in and echo what Dominic and Alacia had just said. Just to Dominic's point, giving students the latitude to run with a project is fabulous once you know you have the right student. once we saw how involved Dominic was and what he was capable of doing, Alicia and I looked at each other and said, he's really doing such a great job. And I said, he's definitely going to be a Newman Civic Fellow, a Campus Compact Newman Civic Fellow. Let's nominate him. And congratulations, Dominic. We just got word. He is our 2020 Newman Civic Fellow Award winner this year. Woo! Yeah. And, that speaks to what Alicia said is, the idea that you don't work in isolation. She mentioned working with the library, and the library is a great example. You have to pull in different departments, different people. She mentioned talking to faculty. One of the examples of working with faculty that we did is student government runs a leadership series. And one of those leadership series, we had a panel of faculty from different disciplines come and speak about issues of importance that students should be thinking about for the election that we were, the 2018 midterm elections. So there's lots of ways in which to involve people, but don't think that it's something you have to do on your own. It's not something that takes a lot of money either. I mean, we were given a generous grant from Vertus's work, and that really helped us. But there's, I don't think you really incur too many costs when you get people excited about this. And I love the idea of what Alicia said, is that we actually found students who wanted to be involved in community engagement work as a result of this. And Dominic is just a perfect example of where you could take that.
Great, thank you, Lori. We do want to have questions from people on the call. You can unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can type it in the group chat, and we can read it for you. But now you have heard from Adam and Lori's team about how they have been able to use the NSolve data to implement a plan along with other partner organizations and turn it into all-in challenge. So what are folks thinking? Have you used NSolve before? Does your campus submit a plan to all-in challenge, or do you participate in other organizations' plan?
So Irving,
Actually,
oh, okay.
I do have one question though. And we see that Melanie just said that Melanie Strout and Melanie Strout, can you type in where you're from too? They completed their NSolve paperwork and submitted it this week. Great. Oh, Bridgeport, Connecticut. There we go. Hey, New England. Great. And also, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but it's not too late to sign up for NSolve. And if you do sign up for NSolve now, can you get your previous data as well?
Yes. So it's not too late to sign up, really ever, for NSolve. It's an ongoing sign up that we have. I will say that we're planning to do probably a run of the data sooner than later. So if there's anyone on the call else who hasn't done the paperwork and is like, I want to join soon, I would say definitely make it a priority to get it in the next week or so. The only kind of sure bet, if you're kind of thinking long-term, is usually the spring after an election. So probably spring 2021 is when the next time for sure that we would run the data. But we are probably going to be running the data sometime soon. And when you sign up, we will give you kind of your back data as well. Because once you join the study, we can then kind of go backwards in time. And so that way you have some comparison data. So it's not just about the most recent election, it's about, you can see a little bit over time how your institution's doing.
Yeah, and I see Aurora from SUNY Buffalo State. And by the way, I'm from Rochester. I went to UB, the other SUNY Buffalo place, but you know, no one's perfect. But and that's another group, they formed a work group from the Voter Friendly Campus, and I believe that is run through NASPA, which is the Student Affairs Professionals Organization, the really, really large one, as well as Campus Vote Project. And they have a designation of voter-friendly campus. And so that if you're in that program, and I believe, and you can look them up, you can just look up a voter-friendly campus, and we can also provide those links afterwards. And Aurora says that they part of that is to have a campus work group, and then apply for the designation, and using the NSolve data to help to inform the goals. I mean, so that's one thing that I would also say, that to utilize the data, then to form goals based on that data is a good use of it. Just one other thing, I don't want to dominate the conversation here, but it's just really, I mean, it's free. One thing, it's free. And the students' information is anonymous, so you have to worry about that, as well as at Tufts IDHE, you guys have something called election imperatives. Can you speak briefly about that, Adam?
Sure. Yeah. So I briefly pulled it up on our website, but you can just Google election imperatives or election imperatives Tufts. And basically what we did was we took our NSolve data and we mapped it against the national numbers, and we found some campuses that were positive and negative outliers. And we visited those schools, and we developed some campus climate data to look at schools that were outperforming their demographics. The research that came from that is called Politics 365, and it has kind of themes for what we saw in those schools. But in talking about those data and having conversations with campuses, one of the things that we kept getting asked was, okay, well, how do we become one of those schools? How do we kind of work long-term to do that? So last year, we put out the second version of it, but it's called, as Verda said, Election Imperatives. It's 10 recommendations that's based off of those campus visits and based off of our qualitative and quantitative data. And it's 10 different areas where you can basically work to create some long-term change with a lot of short-term suggestions. And throughout that report, if you click through, you'll see we try to compile some of the best of resources that are in the field. We include some of our own resources, but we also really want to show everyone kind of how do I navigate this space where there's hundreds of organizations and a ton of great resources out there. We tried to kind of pair those resources with the goals that you might want to achieve.
Great. So we have about just a few minutes left on our call. So if Adam and Lori could just use like a minute or two to give any final thoughts on your presentation or something you haven't mentioned. Lori, I do want you to thinking about the schools that haven't done as much in political engagement work on their campuses. How do they start? So any particular advice on how to get a conversation going. But let's start with Adam, and then we finish with Lori.
Sure. So I'll try to be quick, because I feel like I've talked a lot. I would just say, if you, I'll drop our general email address in the chat box. So if you have any questions you want to follow up with us, just shoot an email to idhe@tufts.edu. We're a really small team here. And most of us are in one giant office, but we all are kind of neighboring to each other. So if you have any questions, we will kind of route your message to the right person. But definitely check to see if you're in NSolve. Definitely use your NSolve data, read up on election imperatives, and if you have any questions, ask us. And follow our office on Twitter @TuftsIDHE. We share news on kind of these topics and resources as they come out. And if you're not on our mailing list yet, definitely do that. That's on the Contact Us page on the IDHE website. Thanks for having me, by the way.
So that's a great question, Irving. And the only thing that I would add is that, you know, it's always with any initiative, just like this, it's really important to look on your campus and see who are the people that might be most interested. And it's also a good idea not to think that you have to do so much and make it so big and huge. Start small and let it grow kind of organically by, you know, involving the right people. And as I said to you, you know, we've had great success clearly with student government and the student life office doing this work. So that would be my recommendation, but also, you know, see if there are faculty on your campus that might be interested. It could be a political science faculty member, it could be a history professor, it could be education. So I would kind of look to see who might be a leader and interested in this, and kind of branch out in other ways when you start this work.
Great, thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Adam. I just want to highlight, well, thank you for sharing with us today. I want to highlight the importance of having the working group on your campus. You know, Lori mentioned that you don't have to feel like you're the only person, the only office doing this type of work in your institution. So definitely getting your allies from across campus will be very, very beneficial. Thank you everyone for joining us today. This has been recorded. I will share that to everyone along with the any information and the slides that I had earlier with folks, and the email and links to the NSolve website. But yeah, we want to really thank you for being here with us, and don't forget to join us in 2 weeks on March 18 at 3 o'clock. Verdes, any final thoughts?
So I mean, like Adam was saying, politics 360, 365 actually. Keep it going. Even after the presidential election, there's another election next year. Keep it going. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.